Respect is everything. There's no successful relationship without respect, nor a successful movement if the basic principle is not respect. The world will respect you as much as you respect yourself.
You have to choose your self-respect over the desire to be chosen. And when you choose yourself first, you don't lose anything real. You simply make space for what's aligned.
You can love yourself and still not respect yourself. You can look in the mirror and genuinely like what you see. You can know your worth intellectually. You can even tell other people they deserve better. But if you look at your actual behavior, how you move through the world, the things you tolerate, the promises you keep breaking to yourself, there's a gap, a big one. That gap is the difference between loving yourself and respecting yourself. Because love is a feeling. Respect is behavioral. Love is how you feel about yourself. Respect is how you treat yourself. And a lot of you have one without the other. There's a test people run on you. Most of them don't even do it consciously. They say something slightly out of line. They push a small boundary. They show up late. They cancel last minute. And then they watch. They're calibrating. They're figuring out, what can I get away with here? Does this person even have a line? And if you laugh it off, if you say, oh, it's fine when it's not, if you let it slide to keep the peace, you just answered their question. You told them there is no line. And people don't respect lines that aren't enforced. This is how you end up in situations where people treat you in ways you'd never treat them. Not because they're evil, but because you trained them. You see it at work. Your coworker dumps their task on you because they know you won't push back. Your boss schedules meeting during your lunch because you've never not once said you were unavailable. You see it with friends. You're always the one reaching out, always the one adjusting your schedule. They cancel on you 2 hours before, but when you need to reschedule, suddenly you're flaky. You see it in how you respond to disrespect. Someone says something that stings, and instead of addressing it, you go quiet. You laugh along. And then you spend the next 3 days replaying it while the other person has already forgotten it happened. That's not being easygoing. That's abandoning yourself in real time. And this doesn't just happen with other people. It happens with yourself. Think about the last time you said you were going to do something for yourself. Wake up early, go to the gym, work on that project. And then you didn't do it. Most people say, oh, they lack motivation. But that's not the real answer. The real answer is you didn't respect yourself enough to keep your word to yourself. If your best friend asks you to do something important, you'd do it. If your boss gave you a deadline, you'd meet it. But when you give yourself a deadline, it slides. It gets forgotten. Because somewhere along the way, you learn that your own commitments are the first thing that can be broken. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you're running that same test on yourself that other people run on you, and you're failing it. This is why you feel stuck. Not because you lack motivation, because you've proven to yourself over and over that you don't follow through. That's not a discipline problem. That's a self-respect problem.
I don't walk away to teach people a lesson. I walk away because I learned mine. I'd rather adjust my life to your absence than adjust my boundaries to accommodate your disrespect. Walking away ain't easy, and it ain't weakness. It's strength. It's self-respect. It's peace to me, because I know my worth, and I don't lose anything by letting go. Only make room for what's real.
A 2022 study on self-abandonment patterns found that people who consistently override their own needs show higher rates of anxiety, depression, and relationship dysfunction. The researchers called it unmitigated communion. Giving without boundaries, caring for others at the total expense of yourself. And they found that it's directly linked to burnout and lower self-esteem, You're not imagining that you feel depleted. The psychology backs it up. So how did this happen? You were trained. Think about what you were taught growing up. Don't make a fuss. Be the bigger person. Keep the peace. You were rewarded for being easy, for not having needs. And if you've ever did push back, you got labeled difficult, sensitive. So you learn to shrink. You learn that having boundaries make people uncomfortable. And making people uncomfortable means losing connection. And losing connection when you're a kid feels like survival. So you adapted. You became the person that doesn't rock the boat. That adaptation kept you safe then, but it's destroying you now. And for men specifically, there's another layer. You were taught that your value comes from what you provide, your usefulness, how much you can carry for other people without complaining. Somewhere you internalize that you're only lovable when you're useful. Research on male identity shows that when men feel they're failing as providers or protectors, their stress hormones spike, and they report feelings of worthlessness, even when nothing external has changed. The identity is that fragile. This is why so many men stay in situations that drain them, jobs that disrespect them, relationships where they're more of a function than a person. Because leaving would mean admitting that their usefulness wasn't enough. And if usefulness is all that you think you have, that's terrifying. You learn to abandon yourself before anyone else could. And you've gotten so good at it, you don't even know you're doing it anymore. Self-abandonment looks like this. You have a feeling, and you immediately talk yourself out of it. You have a need, and you minimize it. Someone does something that bothers you, and your first thought isn't, that was wrong. It's, maybe I'm overreacting. You've been doing this for so long that you don't even know what you actually want anymore. You've spent so much energy managing other people's comfort that you've lost touch with your own. And then you wonder why you feel empty, why you're exhausted even when you haven't done anything. You're exhausted because you're carrying the weight of everyone else's expectation while constantly betraying your own. That's the pattern.
I realize that people with self-respect know how to walk away because they pay attention to how things make them feel. People with self-respect don't ignore discomfort and pretend things are fine when they're not. They listen to their emotions because they've learned that those feelings are signals, not overreactions. So instead of staying and hoping things magically improve, they trust their inner voice and choose to step back when something no longer feels healthy. And most importantly, they refuse to lose themselves trying to keep someone else. People with self-respect seem to understand that shrinking themselves, lowering their standards, or just tolerating mistreatment just to keep someone close never ends well. They don't want relationships where they're constantly proving themselves or overthinking whether they matter. They would rather disappoint someone else than disappoint themselves again. Because in the core, they trust that they'll be okay, even if that means they have to walk alone for a while. I think what keeps most people stuck is fear. Just fear of being alone, fear of regret, fear of not finding anything better. But when you have self-respect, you know you've survived difficult things before, like heartbreak, disappointment, loneliness, and you'll survive again because you know there are people out there who will treat you well, who will match your effort and respect your boundaries. That belief gives people with self-respect to leave what isn't good for them. People with self-respect know how to walk away because they know that choosing themselves will always be the healthiest decision they make.
Now let's talk about breaking it. Self-respect isn't a feeling you generate. It's not affirmations in the mirror. It's behavior. It's what you do when no one is watching and what you refuse to accept when everyone is. It starts with keeping the promises you make to yourself. Going to bed when you said you would. Following through on the workout you planned. Not scrolling for another hour when you know you need sleep. These seem small, but they're not. Every time you do what you say what you're going to do for yourself, you're building evidence that you can be trusted. Rebuilding that trust works the same way it does with anyone else, through consistent small actions over time. Not motivation, proof. Self-respect is also what you don't do. You don't over-explain your boundaries. When you say no, you don't owe anyone a paragraph. No is a complete sentence. The need to justify your no comes from believing it isn't valid on its own. It is. Self-respect is letting people be upset with you. When you start enforcing boundaries you never enforced before, people will push back. They'll call you selfish. They'll say you've changed. And that discomfort will make you uncomfortable. You'll want to cave, to go back to how things used to be. That urge to smooth things over, that's the old programming. The part of you that learned safety meant making everyone else comfortable. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. And anyone who only wants you around when you have no limits, they don't want you. They want access. There's a difference. Self-respect is how you talk to yourself when you fail. You would never let someone call you stupid for a small mistake. You wouldn't let them replay your worst moments on a loop, but you do it to yourself constantly. That voice isn't keeping you humble. It's keeping you paralyzed. Self-respect is treating yourself like someone you're responsible for. If a child you loved was struggling, you wouldn't tell them they're worthless. You'd be patient. You'd give them what they needed to grow. You deserve that same care, not because you've earned it through achievement, because that's what it means to actually be on your own side. When you start doing this, it will feel wrong at first. Boundaries feel mean when you've never had them. Saying no feels selfish when you've always said yes. That discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something bad. It means you're doing something unfamiliar. You will lose people. Some of the relationships in your life exist specifically because you had no self-respect. When you develop some, those relationships will end. Not because you did anything wrong, because they were built on your abandoning yourself and you stopped.
One thing I do know is self-respect is way more important than chasing anybody. You know what I mean? Because, like, they're just going to walk all over you. Like, if there's something that you don't like, something that you don't tolerate, man, you need to dip. You need to leave. Because that person doesn't understand. That person will never understand you. You know what I mean? Because you are you. You have boundaries for a reason. You have things you don't like for a reason. So you got to take the high road and you got to pick yourself first.
The right people will adjust. The wrong people, they will leave. Both outcomes are upgrades. It will be quiet for a while, yes. There's a gap between letting go of people who don't respect you and finding people who actually do. That gap can feel like punishment. It's not. It's clearing space for something better. But eventually, something shifts. You start trusting yourself again. You start keeping promises to yourself and believing that you will. You start recognizing when something doesn't feel right and honoring that instead of arguing yourself out of it. You start attracting people who actually see you, not what you can do for them. That's not arrogance. It's just finally treating yourself like you're worth protecting. Because you are. Not because of what you provide, not because you earned it. You just are. Self-respect isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming honest. Honest about what you need. Honest about what you'll accept. Honest about who you actually are instead of who you think people want you to be. The world responds differently when you stop accepting disrespect. Not because you demand anything, because you stop tolerating everything. People can feel that shift. Stop betraying yourself to keep other people comfortable. The peace you're keeping by staying quiet isn't peace. It's just silence that you're paying for with pieces of yourself. The version of you that has standards, enforces boundaries, and keeps promises to himself. Some people won't like him. Good. Those aren't your people. They never were. They were just people who liked having access to someone with no limits. He's not for them, but he'll finally be for you. Start there. It's been your girl Rene here. I'll see you guys in my next video.